Today we're going to take our grilling to Latin America. I'm going to show you a really simple marinade that you can use to make a piece of skirt steak taste like it comes from the islands. The marinade I'm talking about is mojo. So over here on the grill, I have a little bit of skirt steak cooking, and I'm going to make that mojo while it cooks. Into this hot pan goes a little bit of oil and a lot of garlic. This is really a full flavored sauce. I've got some jalapeno peppers as well. And if you like it even spicier, sometimes you'll see habaneros or spicier chilies than jalapenos used. I tend to like it spicy, so I'm going to add those. Now, step one here is to begin this process of cooking the garlic so that the flavor comes out. If you even allow a slight amount of browning, sort of a golden brown, I think that's appropriate, but be careful about burning garlic because it becomes bitter very, very quickly. Oil is your best friend. It will take the heat and distribute it very, very evenly to the garlic. Now, let's have a little look-see at our skirt steak here. It's cooking nicely, so we'll leave it alone. I've got two spices. One of them is coriander and the other is cumin. And I'm going to add both of those and allow it to sweat in that oil so that the flavors develop, the flavors become fuller. Oil is a great vehicle for flavor, especially in spices that have resins in them like these two right here. Cumin gives you a deep earthy flavor and coriander gives you kind of a citrusy flavor. So those are going to be added to the pan as well. If at any point it looks dry, don't be shy about introducing a little bit more oil. Almost immediately you're going to get the smell of those herbs. That tells you that you've done what it is that you wanted to do, which is to say, wake up those flavors and infuse them into the oil. I'm going to deglaze this pan, sort of capture all that flavor with orange juice. And we'll just let that cook down a little bit. While we do, I'm going to turn the skirt steak over. Maybe I'll switch these guys back to front. Now, today I'm working over a gas grill. And the beauty of a gas grill, just so that we're clear, is that when I get ready to grill, I come out, I turn on the gas, I press the igniter, and 10 minutes later the grill is hot. It really is very convenient. I think it's important that you get a gas grill that's got plenty of firepower because it's frustrating if you can't get enough heat when you're cooking. Beyond that, choose a grill that sort of speaks to you. All right, so this is coming down. Skirt steak is still a couple of minutes off. That thin piece, maybe a minute. The thicker pieces, about 2 minutes. I've got some skirt steak right here. This is uncooked, and there is usually a little thin membrane on it that peels off very, very easily. It's almost clear, but you should look for it. And you know, usually you can just grab it like this and peel it back. This seems to have been cleaned by the butcher, so that's nice. I think the easiest way to marinate meat is just to tuck it into a Ziploc bag like this. And I have a little mojo that I made earlier. And what I'm going to do is just add some of the mojo right into the bag. This marinade has some acid in it. And the more acidic a marinade becomes, the more careful you need to be about how long you marinate the meat. Too much acidity, and what will happen is it will actually cook the meat initially and then make it feel a little bit mushy. Almost like you're making ceviche, huh? So I would say a thin piece of meat like this could marinate for an hour or so, and then it should probably come out. So this thin piece of meat, I'm going to pull off the grill right now. And the thicker pieces are not quite there. Maybe you know this trick, but I'll just share it with you for what it's worth. If you relax your hand like this and poke yourself right in the heel of your palm, you are raw meat, and that's what your relaxed palm will feel like, raw meat. If you touch your thumb to your first finger, it firms up almost imperceptibly, and it goes from feeling like raw meat to rare meat. If you touch your thumb to your middle finger, no press, just touch it, it firms up again. That's what medium feels like. Your ring finger, medium well, and your little finger, it's very firm, and that's what well done meat feels like. The beauty of a skirt steak is that the flesh is so thin that it's pretty easy to feel what's going on in the interior of the meat. The nice thing about this marinade with the orange juice in there, it lends a little bit of sugar so that it can brown more effectively. Okay, before these come off, I'm just going to finish this mojo. I have parsley here, and I add it towards the end. Parsley is a tender herb, and it doesn't need to cook for a long time. I also have cilantro, and I'm going to add that at the end. And we'll stir those herbs in. Season it with a little bit of salt. And then finally, vinegar. This is sherry vinegar. And a good deal more olive oil. That's all there is to mojo. Now, I'm going to take it and just put it into a bowl to cool. I would not put a hot marinade over a piece of meat. If you do, what ends up happening is you cook the meat in the hot marinade. So that should cool before you marinate meat in that. I'm going to pull off these last two pieces of meat. And we'll bring them over here. They should rest for a short time, but it doesn't take long. The thinner the meat is, the less thermal mass it has, and so the less inclined it is to hold on to heat for a long time. All right, so we'll bring skirt steak over. When you look at a piece of skirt steak, it's fairly easy to see where the grain is. The grain is running directly across the skirt steak. The importance of that is this: if you cut with the grain, so between these long grains, and you cut with them, the grains or the fibers of the meat are almost like little rubber bands left in long pieces. If, on the other hand, you cut across the grain, you cut those rubber bands or those fibers into smaller pieces which eat much more tender. So, across the grain like this. If you want it to look a little bit more abundant, you can cut the meat on an angle, on a bias, and it looks a little bit larger than it actually is. The nice thing about skirt steak is that you can decide to grill, and 20 minutes to a half an hour later, you are done. This is the lazy man's grilled meat. Don't be shy about taking a little bit more of this mojo and just drizzling it over the top of the meat. I think that's a nice idea. Be careful that you don't take the mojo that was used as marinade. That now needs to be discarded because it's had raw meat in it. But this batch that we made earlier is entirely appropriate. And if you want to tell a more compelling flavor story, some of the same herbs that make their way into that dish can be tucked on the edge here, cilantro and parsley. So that's it. This is skirt steak with orange mojo, and along with some vegetables, you have a simple meal that tastes as though it came from the Caribbean. So we're going to stay in the Caribbean for a little bit, and I'm going to make some jerk chicken. Jerk is a specialty in the Caribbean around Jamaica. I've got some chicken right here. The original jerk was a preparation where you took a piece of meat, it could be chicken, it could be fish, and you rub a really assertive spice mixture on it as a preservative. And then you cook the meat for a long time over a slow, smoky fire, and that likewise creates a preservative effect. A happy coincidence is that it just happens to taste delicious as well. So let's get started, and I'll tell you a little bit more as we go. First thing I'm going to do is take these chicken thighs, and I like to cut through the meat almost all the way down, or even down to the bone. That allows for the penetration of marinade. So I'm going to put this aside. And the marinade is pretty simple. I'm going to put some green onions in here. I'm going to put in some thyme. I'm going to put in a little bit of cayenne pepper. Don't go too heavy, and you'll see why in a second. Plenty of garlic. And then one thing you should know about jerk is that traditionally it's cooked over allspice wood. Now, allspice wood is hard to come by here, but what we can do is put allspice into our marinade, and that will give us sort of the traditional flavor of jerk. The chilies that are used in the islands typically are Scotch bonnets. What I have here are close cousin. These are habaneros. Regardless of which you use, Scotch bonnets or habaneros, you should know that they are hell hot. So this chili right here is one of the hottest chilies you'll ever taste. You can tone those chilies down very effectively by simply opening the chili up and cutting out the ribs and the seeds. Now, it's not that difficult to do. It doesn't hurt to have gloves on because the capsaicin that makes them hot will get on your fingers. But if you cut out the ribs and the seeds, you have, in effect, gotten rid of about 60% of the heat of that chili. 60% of the heat is in the ribs, 20% in the seeds, and the remaining 20% in the flesh. So I'm going to take those habaneros and add them here. And then finally, we're going to put some vinegar in. And you can do this in a blender, or I have an immersion blender right here. All right, that's all there is to the jerk marinade. There is acid in here, so you want to be a little bit careful how long you marinate. If I was doing jerk shrimp, it may be 20 minutes. If I'm doing a piece of chicken like this, I might leave it in the marinade for 2 to 4 hours. If it were a whole chicken, maybe 12 to 18 hours, and a fish, which is a little bit less dense, maybe 8 hours. All the while making these big cuts. So let me pour this over the top. And I'm just going to rub this into the meat using my gloved hands. Now, as I said, about 4 hours would be right for marinating here. We're going to go ahead and take this right to the grill so you can see the finished dish without having to wait. The next step is to take this to the grill and crisp up the skin. I want to start to turn the skin nice and golden. So put it on the grill, skin side down. You know, you can take some time rubbing that marinade, make sure it gets into the cuts in the meat. we're going to let that skin crisp up. It'll take 4 or 5 minutes. Then we'll turn it over. For the remainder of the cooking, we're going to cook this slowly as though we had it in an oven. I'm actually going to be able to create an oven here by turning the heat off on this side, moving the chicken over, and then putting a lid on it. And you can see, or I'll show you, that I have some little wood chips here that have begun to smolder. I will leave those under the lid for the entire time it's cooking, and this will lend some of the authentic smoky flavor to this particular jerk. Now, let's talk about this for a second. You've got some options if you want to create smoky flavor. Sometimes gas grills like this come with a special little box with a burner right next to it, and you take soaked wood chips, you put them into the box, you close it down, and the smoke is generated. Other times, if you don't have that, what you can do is take a piece of foil like this and put some wood chips on it, get them smoldering. You may have to do it in a small pan directly over a burner, but then to keep them from bursting into flame, you cover, I'll show you the way it looks here, you cover the wood chips in foil, just like this, into a little packet. We'll seal it, and then put it on the grill and just poke some holes in it. And what that will do is allow enough air to get into the wood chips so that they continue to smolder and give off smoke without so much air that they burst into flames. These great little chips that I have here are designed to smolder for a long time, and so you just need to find the right place on the grill. While that's busy getting ready there, I want to make a quick salad. This salad is something that I think would be typical in the islands, but more than that, this salad lends some freshness and some vitality to something that's rich and smoky and meaty. So it provides balance in the meal. The salad that I'm going to make is a fruit salad. It starts with pineapple and watermelon. And then to that, I'm going to add a couple of different things. Some chopped parsley or cilantro, either one is fine. Some minced chilies. This happens to be a Serrano chili right here that I've used. I oftentimes think of this as a fire and ice salad, the hot chilies and the icy cold fruit. And then also some red onions. The dressing on this couldn't be simpler. Here's lime juice, and the lime juice goes over the top. Just a little bit of salt, and that's it. Now, this should marinate for 20, 30 minutes minimum in the refrigerator. I would make it the same day I was going to serve it. Okay, if you take a look here on the grill, the skin has crisped up really nicely. It's golden. I turned it over, I firmed the chicken up on the backside, and now what I want to do is cook this long and slow so that the meat can get tender, it can cook all the way through, the skin can render nice and crispy, and I want to be able to put some smoke flavor on this, which is true to the original tradition of jerk. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take all of the chicken and I'm going to move it over to this side of the grill. This particular grill has 3 burners, 1, 2, and 3. This particular burner, I'm going to turn off right now, so there's no more heat coming from below this chicken. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pucks that are smoldering nicely, and I'm going to move them over so that they can lend their smokiness to this chicken. And then finally, and this is the most important part, I've removed the top of this grill just to make it easier for you to see what I'm doing. But for the duration, I'm going to put the lid back on and create an oven. The beauty of that is that the lid will have a thermometer and it will tell me exactly what the temperature inside is. I'm looking for an oven, if you will, right around 400 degrees, give or take 15 or 20 degrees. So I'm going to put the lid back on. All right, I put the lid back on. It wasn't the most elegant thing to watch, but now that it's on, I'm looking at the thermometer and it's climbing, climbing, climbing. Right now it's at about 300 degrees. I want this on the inside to be about 400 degrees with no heat under the chicken. So I will just adjust the gas under these two burners to maintain the temperature that I want. This chicken will take somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes to cook all the way through. The skin will crisp up, and when it's done, it will have the smoky flavor of traditional jerk. So it was a labor of love, but we put the lid on. Now I've taken it off, and these chicken thighs have been cooking for about 40 minutes. I'm going to take them from the grill. They really look great. The skin is nice and deep mahogany colored. That's partially because it's browned and partially because of the smoke. I'm going to come over here and we'll put it right onto a plate. Some people like to enjoy jerk with a little bit of lime juice squeezed over the top. I'm sort of in that camp. Okay, so there you have it. Jerk chicken side by side with a nice fire and ice fruit salad. This is a great technique. Admittedly, it takes a little bit longer, but I think once you get it down and you understand the process, you'll return to it again and again because the results are so delicious. It works on chicken, it works on fish, it works on shrimp. Make sure you try it. So we're going to leave Jamaica behind, but we're going to stay in the Caribbean. We're going to stay in Latin America. We're going to go over to Mexico, to the Yucatan, where they have a delicious dish called cochinita pibil. It is a specially marinated suckling pig wrapped in banana leaves and then baked in a pit barbecue. I'm going to take some of those ideas and bring them to fish. So let's get started. Cochinita, suckling pig, pibil is the marinade. The marinade starts with annatto seed. Now, in this country, annatto seeds are used as a food additive to make cheddar cheese orange or to make ice cream look like it has more egg yolks in it than it actually does. They use it as a seasoning in the Yucatan. It's a very hard little seed that's hard to grind up and make smooth. That's the bad news. The good news is you can buy it pre-ground, mixed with herbs and garlic and vinegar, and it's called achiote paste. So we call it annatto, they call it achiote. Anyhow, achiote paste looks very much like this. All the spices, garlic, vinegar are in there. It has a wonderful savory smell with a bright citrusy quality. What they do with that is they thin it out traditionally with sour orange juice. Now, sour orange juice can be very difficult to find. So let me give you a couple of options. One would be lime juice, just thin it out with lime juice. Another would be white vinegar, which also works pretty well. But if you really have some time and you're interested, take the juice of 3 limes, the juice and the zest of 2 oranges, and the juice of 1 grapefruit. Mix those all together and then strain out the zest, and that tastes very much like sour orange juice. Today we're going to use lime juice. And what you see here is that I've taken the achiote paste and I've thinned it out into a thin, brothy consistency, and that's ready to marinate the fish. All right. I have some halibut right here. Rock cod or snapper is a nice choice. Here's the tail section. I just want to show you a little something. Let's say you have a piece of meat or a fish that's getting too thin to work with. If you take your knife and you cut almost all the way through, but not all the way through, and then fold this back on itself, suddenly you have a much thicker piece of meat. So there is 3 pieces of meat. Now, we're going to marinate this, but we're going to wrap it in banana leaves. If you don't have banana leaves, you could use foil as well, or you could just marinate the fish and put it to the grill. Here's a piece of banana leaf. And when you work with banana leaf, first thing you want to do is put it over the heat of the grill, the heat of an open flame, and you'll see it turn kind of shiny. That's the cell structure breaking down, and it releases some oils. It also makes this banana leaf easy to fold. All right, next, a piece of fish goes in, and we'll add some of the marinade. And really what this banana leaf is going to do is contain that marinade. Let's give it just a little bit of salt as well. It's going to contain that marinade so that it will flavor the fish. I'm going to fold the ends up and over. And then I have a little tie here that's also made from banana leaf, and I'm going to tie that packet closed. So there is that. If you need to make a tie from a piece of banana leaf, what I'm going to suggest you do is you take a strip of banana leaf, just like this, and then you tie one end of it into a little knot. Tie one end into a knot like that, and then take the rest of it and split it. And you end up with a tie that's ready to go. Let me wrap one more for you just so that there's no confusion. All right, this is all wrapped up and it's ready to go on the grill. Now, I've got two others that we're going to put on as well. And it's very difficult to tell how long they're going to take. What I would offer up by way of advice is that for each inch of thickness, you can expect about 10 minutes of cooking time over a moderate heat grill. Certainly you can open it up and see if the fish is cooked. It'll be nice and moist. You might consider flipping it top to bottom halfway through the cooking. But 10 minutes is a pretty good rule of thumb. We're going to make good use of that time. If you come on over here, there's two traditional garnishes that are served along with cochinita pibil and also with anything with a pibil marinade. One of them is this. It's pickled onions. These are red onions, and they couldn't be simpler to make. You slice the red onions, you put them into a pot of vinegar, just enough to barely cover them, along with a pinch of oregano and a couple of leaves, a couple of peppercorns, and a pinch of salt, and you bring them up to one boil, and they will last in your refrigerator for months. So we have those, and we also have a salsa. And the salsa, interestingly enough, is made on the grill or over the fire. What they do is they take all of the ingredients for the salsa and they fire roast them. So imagine these tomatoes put onto a grill so that they completely collapse and get this wonderful concentration and caramelization of flavor. They take those tomatoes and then they peel off the worst of the black, just like this, and the balance goes into a mortar and pestle. Now, what is kind of exciting to me is this idea that we're talking about live fire cooking, and we're talking about stone implements. So this is really early rudimentary cooking. They do the same thing with onions. They take them and cut them into slices and then put them on the grill until they are charred and caramelized. You can take chilies and do the same thing. You want to char the outside and allow the flesh to become a little bit tender. In the Yucatan, typically the chili that you will see being used is the habanero. Very, very hot and oftentimes difficult to find. So if you can't find it, I would say a jalapeno or a serrano can stand in. And then finally, garlic gets roasted in its papery husk. And once you have roasted garlic inside, you peel away the worst of the black. All of these ingredients go into the mortar and pestle and they're pounded, what the Mexicans call a molcajete. They're pounded into a delicious salsa. That's the bad news. The good news is you can go into your kitchen, put it all into the food processor, pulse it once or twice, and it's a done deal. And I have that done right here. Here's the salsa all made. So we have salsa, we have the pickled onions, and no cochinita barbecue or fish barbecue would be complete without tortillas. Now, tortillas are bought. I'm not going to suggest you make them, but we want to warm them up before they're served. And the obvious choice is to warm them one by one on the grill. If you have a crowd of people, what I would suggest is wrapping them in foil. And then you can wrap, 8 or 10 in one package of foil and turn them for about 5 minutes on the grill, turning them every 30 seconds. And the whole packet of tortillas will become warm. And then you can take that right to the table wrapped in foil. We're just making a few, so I'll warm them right on the grill. If you come over to the grill here, I think at this point, we can probably take and flip this over and allow the fish to cook from the other side. Right now, as you can see, all the juices are staying inside this little packet of banana leaf. That's exactly what we want. We want this to stay moist and delicious. If your grill is so hot that the leaves begin to burn up, then obviously you need to turn the grill down. An easy way to test that would be when you're wrapping the fish, just put the banana leaf on there and it bursts into flames, you know your grill is too hot. But on a moderate grill like this, you can see it can sit there very happily for a minute or two and not even begin to char around the edges. These, as I said, are going to cook in about 10 minutes. Let's take a piece of this, or a packet of fish, and we'll take it off the grill and see just where we're at. I'm going to open it gently. I want to try and preserve the moisture inside. And look at the fish. It flakes beautifully apart. So we are set and ready to go. I'm going to take this in its packet and transfer it right to the plate like this. A little bit extra marinade is not the end of the world. There you have it. We've got pibil marinated fish that was cooked inside of banana leaves on the grill. This is really the flavor of the Yucatan from your grill directly to you.